Many people find manifestation difficult because they believe they must control the entire universe, change their circumstances overnight, or perform complicated rituals to make something happen. But in reality, manifestation often becomes much easier when you understand one simple principle. The brain responds more strongly to identity than to desire. In other words, what you believe you are tends to shape what you eventually experience. When you start acting and thinking like the person who already has what you want, your mind begins adjusting your behavior, attention, and decisions to match that identity. This idea may sound philosophical at first, but it is supported by several areas of science including psychology, neuroscience, behavioral economics, and even cognitive studies on perception. Human behavior is strongly guided by something psychologists call self-concept. Self-concept is the internal story you tell yourself about who you are. It includes beliefs like, I am confident, I am unlucky, I am disciplined, or I am bad at business. These beliefs are not just thoughts, they influence the way your brain filters information and the choices you make every day. Researchers have found that people tend to act in ways that confirm their self-concept, even when those behaviors limit their potential. This is known as the consistency principle in psychology. The brain prefers actions that match the identity it already believes to be true. That is why two people with similar opportunities can achieve very different results depending on how they see themselves. Neuroscience provides another explanation through the concept of neuroplasticity. The human brain constantly rewires itself based on repeated thoughts and actions. Every time you think a certain way, imagine a future scenario, or practice a behavior, specific neural pathways become stronger. Over time, those pathways become more automatic. When someone repeatedly imagines and behaves like their future self, the brain begins strengthening circuits associated with confidence, planning, and goal-directed action. This process is similar to how athletes mentally rehearse their performance before competitions. Brain imaging studies have shown that visualization activates many of the same neural networks that are used during the real activity. The brain begins preparing itself for the behavior before it actually happens. Another powerful factor is the reticular activating system, a network in the brainstem that helps filter the enormous amount of information around us. Every second your senses collect far more data than your conscious mind can process. The reticular activating system decides what becomes noticeable. Interestingly, it is strongly influenced by what you focus on and what you believe is important. When you adopt the mindset of your future self, your brain begins highlighting opportunities, resources, and connections related to that identity. For example, when someone begins to see themselves as a disciplined learner, they naturally notice educational resources, ideas, and conversations that support that identity. In this way, changing identity can literally change what you perceive in your environment. There is also a well-known phenomenon called the self-fulfilling prophecy. Sociologists and psychologists have documented this effect in education, business, and personal development. Expectations influence outcomes because beliefs change behavior. If a person believes they are capable of achieving something, they are more likely to take risks, persist through obstacles, and invest effort over long periods. Those actions increase the probability of success, which then reinforces the original belief. Manifestation teachings often describe this as becoming the version of yourself who already has what you want. Instead of waiting for external success to prove your worth, you begin shaping your identity first. One of the most effective ways to practice this idea is during the quiet moments before sleep. As the day ends, the brain gradually moves from active analytical thinking towards slower brainwave patterns associated with relaxation and memory consolidation. Neuroscientists know that during sleep the brain organizes experiences, strengthens important neural connections, and weakens others. The thoughts you repeat before sleep can therefore influence what the brain continues processing overnight. When a person calmly imagines themselves living with the qualities they want, confidence, creativity, discipline, or resilience. The brain treats that mental rehearsal as meaningful information. At a practical level, the technique is very simple. Before going to sleep, take a few minutes to imagine yourself as the person you are becoming. Not just someone who wants success, but someone who already carries the mindset, habits, and emotional stability of that success. Imagine how you speak, how you think through problems, how you respond to setbacks, and how you treat other people. This is not about fantasy or unrealistic daydreaming. The purpose is to train the brain to recognize a new identity. When the mind repeatedly experiences that identity in thought, it becomes easier to express it through behavior during the day. Behavioral science also shows that identity-based habits are far more stable than motivation alone. When people rely only on motivation, their behavior often fluctuates depending on mood or external circumstances. But when actions are connected to identity, they become more consistent. Someone who believes, "I am a healthy person," naturally chooses healthier behaviors, not because they are forcing themselves, but because those behaviors match their self-image. The same pattern applies to learning, creativity, financial discipline, and leadership. Some thinkers also draw inspiration from ideas in physics, particularly discussions about observation and probability in quantum systems. In certain quantum experiments, observation appears to influence how particles behave. While this does not mean human thoughts magically control physical reality, the concept serves as a useful metaphor. In everyday life, awareness and interpretation strongly shape experience. What you observe, expect, and focus on changes the way you interact with the world. Your perception becomes a kind of psychological measurement that influences your decisions and reactions. Another important aspect of this process is emotional alignment. The brain responds more strongly to thoughts that carry emotional meaning. When you imagine your future self with calm confidence and genuine belief, your nervous system responds differently than when you imagine the same goal with anxiety or doubt. Positive emotional states can activate neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin, which influence motivation, learning, and resilience. Over time, repeatedly connecting your goals with feelings of possibility and calm determination can strengthen your willingness to take action. The interesting thing about identity is that it rarely changes in one dramatic moment. Instead, it shifts gradually through small, repeated experiences. Every time you think, imagine, or behave like the person you want to become, you are giving your brain evidence that this identity is real. At first, it may feel unfamiliar, but with repetition, the mind begins accepting it as normal. Eventually, your decisions, conversations, and habits start reflecting that identity automatically. In this sense, manifestation is less about forcing the external world to change and more about reorganizing the internal patterns that guide your behavior. When your thoughts, emotions, and identity begin aligning with the life you want to build, your actions naturally move in that direction. Over weeks and months, this alignment can influence the opportunities you pursue, the skills you develop, and the persistence you show when facing challenges. The results may appear gradual, but they often feel surprising when you look back and realize how much your mindset and direction have shifted. The powerful insight behind this approach is simple but profound. The mind does not only react to reality, it also helps shape how reality unfolds through perception, expectation, and behavior. By consistently imagining and acting from the identity of your future self, you give your brain a clear signal about who you are becoming. Over time, that signal becomes stronger than doubt, stronger than old habits, and strong enough to guide your choices toward the life you once only imagined.